Welcome to the debate. Right now, there is a developer in Nigeria using artificial intelligence to run a globally localized media empire. He is out publishing traditional newsrooms and hitting $20,000 a month in revenue.
Wow, 20,000.
Yeah, and it only takes him about 5 hours a week to manage. We are looking at a fundamental paradigm shift in how individuals generate value. Today, we are analyzing a comprehensive guide on automating personal income with AI.
Right. And it covers a lot of ground.
It really does. The source material outlines strategies from automated content creation to algorithmic trading bots, all the way to orchestrating global e-commerce with autonomous agents.
It's a massive scope.
Exactly. And the core argument I am taking away from this text is that AI income automation represents a genuine democratization of wealth creation, fundamentally leveling the global economic playing field for individuals.
Well, the examples in the text are undeniably impressive from a technical standpoint. I will give you that. But framing this as a democratization of passive income severely oversimplifies the reality on the ground.
How so?
Because while it is technologically impressive, treating AI as a passive employee oversimplifies the friction, the costs, and the inevitable market saturation. It ultimately replaces traditional barriers with a hyper-competitive, automated rat race.
I mean, we should probably start with the sheer scale of the access being described, because the destruction of geographic bottlenecks here is just unprecedented.
Sure, the geographic barriers are definitely shifting.
Shifting and in many ways collapsing. The material makes it clear that anyone with a computer and stable internet, whether you are using a 5G connection in rural Kenya or a Starlink dish in Germany, you now have access to the exact same foundational intelligence models as a well-funded Silicon Valley startup.
Access to the models? Sure. I mean, you can set up free accounts on OpenAI or Hugging Face or Google Colab in minutes.
Right, and that is exactly the point. The text highlights a creator in India earning $5,000 a month by publishing highly specific SEO-optimized guides.
The vertical farming example, right?
Yeah, the example used is vertical farming in urban India. Before, scaling a niche publication like that required hiring writers, editors, SEO specialists. It was a whole operation.
It was a traditional business structure.
Exactly. But now, by using automation tools like Zapier, this single creator is seamlessly scheduling content across X, LinkedIn, and TikTok. It's an entire media company run by one person.
I come at it from a different way, though. If we look at how that actually works under the hood, Zapier isn't magic. It relies on webhooks to trigger actions across different software platforms.
Right. It catches a trigger, like a new article being generated by ChatGPT.
Yes, and doing that once or twice is easy. It pushes it to a WordPress site, formats a social media post, maybe delays publishing until 8 a.m. in your target time zone. But the material proposes doing this at scale to generate meaningful income.
Which the APIs allow you to do seamlessly.
Seamlessly, but not for free. This is where the passive narrative completely falls apart. When you connect these intelligence models like Jasper or Claude or Grok to real-world publishing systems via APIs, you are entering a pay-to-play environment.
Well, the free tiers are incredibly generous for beginners, though.
For beginners who are just learning the system, yes. But the moment you scale to the volume required to actually replace a full-time income, those free API tiers vanish instantly.
Because you're burning compute power.
Exactly. Every time the AI reads a prompt, analyzes data, and generates a 2,000-word article, you pay per token. If you are automating 50 localized articles a day, you are incurring constant variable costs for every single operation your system runs.
But the revenue scales with it.
Assuming people read it. Which brings up the exact pitfall the text explicitly warns about: total market saturation. If anyone can use GPT to instantly outline 50 articles and publish them on Medium or Substack, what happens when 1 million people do that exact same thing tomorrow?
Saturation of generic content, maybe.
But if generating an SEO-optimized article requires zero specialized human capital, the economic value of that generalized article trends to zero. When everyone has access to a tireless digital employee, having one ceases to be a unique advantage. It just becomes the new baseline to even compete.
That's an interesting point, though I would frame it differently. Think about the introduction of the printing press.
Okay, a big historical leap, but go on.
Well, just because more books could suddenly be printed didn't mean the value of publishing was destroyed. It simply shifted where the value was generated. It went from the physical labor of scribes to original thought and distribution.
Right. The mechanical labor was automated.
Exactly. In the AI economy, the value simply shifts away from the physical labor of typing words and moves toward original prompts, niche targeting, and architectural ingenuity. Yes, generating a generic article about farming is a commodity now, but identifying the intersection of AI and sustainable farming and targeting it properly, that is where the human creator extracts value.
But to actually capture that specific value and stand out, the guide notes you have to engage in highly technical, non-passive work. You cannot just use the off-the-shelf ChatGPT interface.
You mean fine-tuning?
Right. You have to go onto platforms like Hugging Face and train custom machine learning models on your own proprietary data. You are doing this so the AI outputs in a branded, unique voice.
Which the text explains exactly how to do.
It explains it, but it glosses over the intense difficulty. Curation of that data set, adjusting mathematical weights, testing the outputs against over-reliance. That is complex engineering work. You are just trading the labor of writing for the highly technical labor of relentless iteration.
It is a different type of labor, certainly, but it's manageable. Now, it's one thing to trust a language model to write a blog post about farming. If the AI hallucinates a fact, you just get a few angry comments.
Right, the stakes are low.
Exactly. But the source material takes a massive leap when it suggests handing these algorithms our wallets. And we should transition into the financial automation piece here because it's fascinating.
And this is where the stakes change entirely. We aren't talking about a blog post failing to get clicks anymore. We are talking about direct, real-world capital exposure.
The guide champions using AI trading bots, which are accessible globally via platforms like eToro or Binance. It details using no-code platforms like PineScript on TradingView.
Or QuantConnect, yeah.
Right, to build out trading strategies that historically only institutional quants could execute.
But look at the risks inherent in that. The text touts strategies like using an RL bot, a reinforcement learning algorithm. For the listener, reinforcement learning is essentially training an AI by letting it make millions of simulated trades.
It rewards it for profits and penalizes it for losses.
Exactly, until it learns to spot patterns. The material suggests using these bots for crypto arbitrage using tools like 3 commas.
Arbitrage being the practice of exploiting tiny price differences across different markets?
Right. So the bot might spot Bitcoin trading for $60,000 on a Korean exchange and $60,050 on US-based Coinbase. It executes a buy and a sell in milliseconds to capture that $50 spread.
And the text claims you can see 1 to 5% daily gains doing this, or 10 to 30% annual returns.
It does claim that, but let's look at the actual mechanics of operating an algorithmic high-frequency trading bot. This requires seed capital and incredibly active risk management via stop losses.
The mechanics are exactly what give the retail investor the leverage, though.
Leverage amplifies gains, yes, but it also amplifies ruin. The material highlights Brazilians using these exact bots to trade Brazilian real to stablecoin pairs amidst intense domestic inflation.
Which is a valid wealth preservation strategy.
But operating an autonomous bot in a volatile emerging market currency environment is inherently dangerous high-stakes financial management. If the Brazilian real drops 5% in an hour due to a political announcement, the bot doesn't watch the news.
Well, it watches the price action.
Yes, and it might misinterpret that massive volatility spike as a buying opportunity. Your real hard-earned capital evaporates in milliseconds. Calling this a tireless employee dramatically downplays the financial nerve required here.
I'm not convinced by that line of reasoning because you are assuming the retail investor is operating in a vacuum. You're picturing someone writing a static rule and just hoping for the best.
They are often doing exactly that.
But the AI is automating the millisecond level execution that humans physically cannot do. By backtesting on historical data from Yahoo Finance across over 100 exchanges, the risk is calculated. And more importantly, the text introduces the mechanism of federated learning.
Federated learning is a fascinating architecture, I will admit, but it doesn't solve the core risk.
It solves the intelligence issue, though. Historically, quantitative arbitrage was gatekept by massive Wall Street hedge funds because they have the most data. Federated learning democratizes that data advantage.
By keeping the data local, right?
Exactly. Think about it like 1,000,000 doctors sharing what they learned from treating patients without ever sharing a single private medical record. Instead of sending your personal trading history to a central server, the central server sends the AI model down to your laptop.
So it learns locally.
Yes, it learns from your specific successful and failed trades locally. Then, it only anonymously shares the improvements, the updated mathematical weights, back to the global pool. It grants everyday people access to institutional-grade financial mechanics.
It is giving them sophisticated models, yes, but in the world of arbitrage, data is only half the battle. The other half is latency, the physical speed of the trade.
Latency is a factor, sure.
It's the defining factor. Wall Street hedge funds spend hundreds of millions of dollars to co-locate their servers physically inside the same building as the stock exchange just to shave microseconds off their execution time.
Right, to beat the retail traders.
To beat everyone. A retail investor running a bot via an API over a Starlink connection in Brazil is going to be milliseconds slower than the institutions. By the time your incredibly smart federated learning bot spots the opportunity and sends the signal to buy, the institutional bot has already bought it.
That latency argument assumes the individual must compete directly in the exact same microsecond latency games as Citadel or Jane Street. They don't have to.
How do they avoid it?
By targeting localized inefficiencies, niche crypto pairs, or longer horizon momentum trades where a 50-millisecond delay doesn't destroy the thesis. But honestly, even if we move past the trading aspect, the ultimate vision of the guide is where this gets truly revolutionary.
You mean the agent swarms?
Yes, we are talking about connecting these individual tools into a multi-stream orchestration, a full business automation, where an AI doesn't just write, copy, or execute a single trade, but runs an entire end-to-end e-commerce business.
The text predicts that by 2027, utilizing frameworks like LangChain or AutoGen, a single prompt could trigger a fully autonomous multi-stream business.
Exactly. And it is vital to understand how frameworks like LangChain actually operate. If a large language model is a brain in a jar, LangChain gives it hands.
That's a good way to put it.
It is the connective tissue. It allows an AI to interact with live databases and take action. You can source physical goods from AliExpress. The automation handles the logistics natively.
Using tools like AutoDS, as the text mentions.
Right. AutoDS monitors your inventory levels, automatically places orders with suppliers, and tracks shipments to customers across 200 countries. Let's say you're generating listings for eco-friendly bamboo toothbrushes targeting EU organic shoppers.
A very specific niche.
And you can dynamically adjust prices via Prisync during India's Diwali or US holidays. The text even cites an Australian dropshipper hitting 6 figures as proof of this leveling of global commerce.
I'm sorry, but I just don't buy that. Let me tell you why. The term agent swarm sounds wonderfully frictionless, right? A digital agent generating an image of a bamboo toothbrush is frictionless.
Okay.
But the moment a physical good crosses a sovereign border, or a digital payment is processed globally, you hit a massive wall of regulatory administration. You have to navigate incredibly complex international realities.
But the tools integrate with payment gateways to handle that friction.
They process the transaction, sure, but they do not absolve you of the legal compliance. To manage this swarm, you have to handle wise multi-currency payouts and reconcile automated ledgers.
Which software can assist with?
Assist with, yes, but not take the liability for. If your AI is selling to customers in France and Germany, you must comply with EU VAT via tax jar. You have to ensure GDPR-compliant data handling on EU-hosted servers.
The guide does advise aiming for 80% automation to free your time.
Exactly. It explicitly advises aiming for 80% automation, meaning that remaining 20% is highly complex, actively managed international business administration, and it gets exponentially more dangerous the deeper into specialized niches you go.
You're referring to the healthcare bots.
Yes, The guide suggests creating healthcare-adjacent nutrition bots trained on PubMed medical models. Think about the liability there. If you deploy a healthcare advising AI in India, you are suddenly required to adhere to India's DPDP Act.
The Data Protection Act, right.
Right. And if you deploy in Brazil, you are facing the regulations of Anvisa, their national health surveillance agency. Running a multinational automated enterprise isn't a passive side hustle. It is practically a full-time international compliance job.
I see the friction you are describing, absolutely. But we have to view that 20% administration cost relative to historical barriers.
Fair enough.
In the past, achieving the scale of operating in 200 countries would require teams of compliance officers, HR departments, tax attorneys. Today, the fact that an individual operating from a laptop can utilize API integrations to handle that means the barrier to entry has been radically lowered.
Lowered, yes. I'll agree with that. Eliminated, no.
To summarize my view on all of this, the revolutionary nature of AI income automation provides unprecedented leverage. It turns a one-time architectural setup into continuous global profit streams. From a Tokyo sunrise to a New York night, the automation runs.
And to summarize my view, while these tools are undeniably powerful, they introduce a new, complex tier of automated labor. It requires constant iteration, strict compliance, and active management to avoid saturation and massive API costs.
Though I think we both agree on the trajectory of the technology itself, we are currently seeing the integration of multimodal AI, like GPT-4V for e-commerce image analysis.
Oh, absolutely. The integration of multimodal systems and real-time data models like Grok 4.1 will fundamentally alter the mechanics of global digital labor.
It is a profound complexity we are navigating here, treating intelligence itself as an automated workforce.
It forces us to rethink what a company even is.
Exactly. We invite you to dive deeper into the source material. Decide for yourself whether these tools offer true passive financial freedom or if they simply raise the baseline of global economic competition. It's a question we will all have to answer.